Welcome in everybody to HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm your host, Kevin McPherson. This is a busy Tuesday for Arkansas Razorbacks men's basketball. Actually, every day has been, but you've got offers going out today too. Scholarship offers from John Calipari and the coaching staff. This was expected. This was something that was mounting and heading toward offers. And so we're going to get into that. That'll be the first thing we talk about. Also, other business in terms of a visit that's not going to happen now. This is the first one that I can think of in this recruiting cycle where a visit was scheduled and is not going to happen. We've seen visit dates moved around a little bit, take a while to be reported and get out publicly, and then happen really quickly. But what we haven't seen is what we see every year, and this is the first time again this year, where a visit date is not going to happen, period. So we're going to get into that as well. So we got quite a bit to get to. Several players that Arkansas is recruiting in the 2026 class and beyond. So we're going to touch on a little bit all of it. This is basically a recruiting segment. We mentioned in our most recent segment, went through some practice updates from stuff we were hearing from inside that performance center. We've talked a lot about it through the limited stuff in the June and July, the limited summer practice, plus what we've been hearing from practices since they got back to campus when school started back. But remember, Monday of this week was the first day that full-blown, fully expanded practice has moved to that level now, where you're going from 8 total hours a week to 20. So it's a big deal, and so we're going to continue to give you updates on that. Not as much there for us to get into today. We'll probably save it for another day because we got a lot to get to in recruiting. So let's do just that as we dip into it. Once again, thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. The Ratliff twins, the Twin Towers, the 7-footers, West Plains, New York, just outside of New York City. Archbishop Stepanak, that's where, yes, we can still say his name. Boogie Flan, that's where Cal plucked him from, the same school. And Calipari, the head hog, the Don, the hog father, personally out to see both players on Monday. Now, we did a segment on Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, and I didn't go into this other than someone brought up the fact that Calipari on the show in one of the comments was out Sunday evening after hosting 2 5-star visitors in Irfan Diane and Jordan Smith Jr. over the weekend, was already out Sunday in West Haven, Connecticut, brought up the fact that Calipari was out to see Abdou Toure. That's true. And then we saw photos emerge from Toure's Twitter account with he and Cal for an in-home visit Sunday night. But so we talked a little bit about that during the show, and I said if Calipari's there during Sunday night show, if in fact he's there for that, I expect him to stop by and check out and see the Ratliff twins. That's been kind of the pattern in that part of the country when Arkansas's Chuck Martin went out, was, see the Ratliffs, see Toure. Sure enough, Sunday after we got off our segment, a source within the Stepanak program reached out to me and said, hey, just giving you a heads up, I'm going to let you put this out, but please wait until Monday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So that was 9 a.m. Central time when I put it out. So just wait till Monday morning, but just want you to know Cal and Brad Calipari will be by Stepanak for a Monday afternoon workout, a 3:15 p.m. Eastern time. So in my tweet, I had it 2:15 Central time. But that was the information given to me on Sunday, and that Arkansas, the same source, that Arkansas is now prioritizing the Ratliff twins. Okay, all that made sense. We kind of saw it heading that way. It seemed like it was barreling toward that anyway. But we got it, I got it straight from the Stepanak program a day before I actually broke the news, and was the first report that Calipari and Brad, the two Caliparis, John and Brad, would be out to see these guys. And then I put in the tweet, the next thing will be, likely offers, scholarship offers. Well, I knew that was coming. I knew that Sunday. I was told, yeah, that's coming too. But when, we weren't 100% sure exactly when. Could it be the same day they were out Monday? The offers actually came out on Tuesday, today. So that's what you get. Scholarship offers, reported that earlier. The same source within Stepanak sent me when it was happening to go ahead and put it out that they just gotten offered. And so I did. Thought I was the first to report it, but a national guy had me beat by maybe a minute, maybe a little less than that. So he got the same information. I typed out a long text or tweet, and that maybe cost me in being first to report. No big deal. We've been all over this. We've been on all the recruiting, all over all of it. So you know how we do. We don't mess around. So the offers went out. And so the next thing is the official visit dates for both Ratliffs. Darius and Adonis, both 7-footers. We've talked a lot about them going back to when Chuck Martin, the assistant coach, first went out to see those guys back in April earlier this year. And he's been out 2 more times since the current recruiting period opened back up September 3rd. It was Brad Calipari's second trip out, going with his dad on Monday, because he'd gone out with Martin on one of those stops. And then about a week or so ago, it was associate head coach Kenny Payne who went out there. So Arkansas's made at least 4 stops since September 3rd. I believe that's right. And at least 3 or 4 stops, 4, with 4 different staff members included in some combination. So priority, I think it's pretty obvious that you were escalating, getting to this point. Now it's the official visits. Okay, so I'm going to go back in time again to yesterday on Monday. A source told me, because I knew that the official visits, it was just a matter of time of when those would be announced publicly, got announced today. But on Monday, I was told by a source that, yeah, official visits, those are being worked out right now. And so I don't know if they're finalized or close to being finalized. I would guess is what is more likely. And they may, and since that was Monday information, they already have it locked up in terms of what those visits will be. Now, Arkansas, let's talk a little bit more about the Twins and then what the potential for really upcoming quick visits could be. They just were on campus with Nate Oates in Alabama for an official visit a few days ago. A lot of other high majors really stepping up and getting in the picture for these guys. And Arkansas, again, has been recruiting them for a while. It wasn't just overnight. It might seem like that a little bit because of all the frequency of going out there. But remember, again, Martin back in the spring was out to see him, and they were familiar with him. They're familiar with the program there because of Boogie Flan, that kind of thing. So we're going to get into some potential visit dates for these guys, but they are imminent. It's happening, and the dates may even be finalized by now. We'll effort to get those. But let's go into some more things about the Ratliff twins. Their dad, Theo, an all-pro NBA guy. Back in the day, back in the Allen Iverson days, played with Iverson and was one of the top defensive big men in the league. Very athletic, long. Both of these guys are 7-footers. Both of them ranked top 100 prospects. Darius Ratliff, I think, ranked top 50-ish. And I think Adonis is maybe in the 80s, but they're both top 100. You could say Darius is top 50. But these guys can shoot it a little bit, step out and shoot. Darius, again, the higher rated of the two. When I was covering the Nike EYBL sessions in the spring and going back to Memphis in May, the mid-May event that was the first live eval period for Division I coaches, Calipari, Chin, Coleman were at the same site I was. But the Ratliff twins were in street clothes a lot. I guess they were dealing with injuries, is what I was told. And so you saw them with their team, huddling up with the team, being good teammates, but they weren't playing in the opportunities with Team CP3 when I was there. And so I think Arkansas's coaching staff also obviously missed opportunities to see him compete at that time when Calipari was actually there. So I think it was good that John Calipari and Brad Calipari were out Monday because they got to see these guys in a workout, got to see him play, probably went ahead and sealed the deal in terms of moving forward now with offers and visits. All right, so that's kind of catching you up to speed on the situation of the Ratliffs. Now we look ahead to what could be potential for a visit date. Well, also today on Tuesday, big news day, Cloer, who Arkansas gave a late July offer to after Calipari and Coleman had seen him play multiple times on Nike EYBL. Cloer released a Final 5 list of schools. Arkansas was not on it. I was told yesterday by a source, just checking in on the Cloer situation, knowing, well, he's the next scheduled visit. You just had the 2 5-stars through Sunday. On Monday, I'm asking, okay, Cloer's the only thing down the road. It coincides on the same weekend that Arkansas is going to have that prime time at the Palace event. That'll be Friday, October 3rd, and that's where the visit dates, the 3rd to the 5th. The football team has an open date for Cloer, the 6'7" wing out of the state of North Carolina, plays at IMG Academy. Calipari and Chin Coleman out to see him when the recruiting period first opened up was on Wednesday, September 3rd, and so Wednesday night, the plane left where they had already seen Jordan Smith Jr. and Baba Aladdin, went down to Bradenton, Florida, where IMG Academy is. And then early Thursday morning, September 4th, I reported, this is my intel from Scott Cloer, Cole's dad, that Calipari and Coleman had breakfast with Cloer in the IMG Academy cafeteria. After that, it was really quiet in terms of Colt Cloer, other than we've known that public visit date. Well, he releases his Final Five. Arkansas's not in it, and a source told me yesterday when I was following up about that upcoming visit, it ain't happening. And I was like, okay. So I'm like, I think I'm going to put that out. And I was asked not to because the source that told me this said his list is about to come out. Let that happen. Don't, you're not cleared to put out the information I gave you. Let the kid put out his list and then you can do it. And so I did. That's what I did earlier today when the list came out. That list is made up of, so Cloer had, before Arkansas offered him in late July at the end of Peach Jam, Cloer had recently, at that time, just before that, had put out what looked like a list of 8 finalists. Obviously, Arkansas not in it because Arkansas hadn't even offered him. We hadn't heard his name tied to Arkansas up until the offer came. So Arkansas offers him. A day later, Kentucky offers him. And then a few weeks later, I can't remember the recency, but pretty soon after that, he updated a visit list. And it was no longer 8 teams, it was 7, and both Arkansas and Kentucky were among the 7. So some of the teams in the original 8 were out of the mix. And now he's not only saying here are 7 teams, but here are visits. The Arkansas date wasn't clear at that time, neither was a UConn date. I later broke the news of his visit date to Arkansas, coming from the dad, Scott Cloer, October 3rd through 5th, so I first reported that. As well as the UConn visit dates, I ended up first reporting that because his dad shared those with me. So the picture was becoming more clear about the visits. Okay, so at the end of the day here, the teams that were make his Final Five are among the original first 8. So that original first 8 group, all 5 of these finalists were on that list. And that is the in-state schools, North Carolina State, where he's visited, North Carolina, UConn, where he's visited, Alabama, where he canceled his Kentucky midweek visit week before last. Or no, it was this past week. God, the days are running together. It was the past week when Tate Kenny bumped up his visit to midweek to Arkansas. That's when Colt Cloer was supposed to be at Kentucky, but he, kind of getting closer to that, canceled that altogether and ended up going to Bama. Well, Bama's on his list, his Final Five list, as is Florida. So those 5 teams, North Carolina State, North Carolina, UConn, Alabama, and Florida, those are the Final 5. They were on his original 8. The 2 teams that offered on back-to-back days at the end of Nike Peach Jam, Arkansas and Kentucky, he scheduled visits with and ended up canceling both of them. And then Kansas made an offer to him much later than Arkansas and Kentucky. I mean, recently, like in the last couple of weeks. And of course, you thought, well, is he going to then, if they're making a scholarship offer, they may have that tied to a visit they're going to get. Well, Kansas is not on the Final 5 list. So all the latecomers, you took your shot, but it didn't work out. Now, the source that told me yesterday that this visit had been canceled, a couple of things. They said, let the kid put out his list, and then you can say that you knew that it was whatever. What I did, I tweeted, yeah, this has been canceled, the visit. Seems obvious if they're not on the Final 5, but I actually got it yesterday. But the other part of this is, I said, so who canceled who? Did he cancel Arkansas because he's down to a Final 5, or is Arkansas not in the Final 5 because they backed away because they're prioritizing something else they want to do? And I don't have a clear answer to that. That was not imparted to me. So I didn't have that part of it. So you can, speculate how that went down because I don't know for a fact either way. And maybe we'll learn later. Maybe we'll find out later. But that's the update on Colt Cloer. So if October 3rd through the 5th is open, and because Tate Kenny was scheduled to come in this weekend was when he was scheduled, the 5-star guard that came in midweek instead this past week for September 26th to the 28th. Football Hogs back at home for the first time since the season opener to host Notre Dame. Won't that be a doozy? But, you're going to have the fan atmosphere for a highly anticipated game, regardless of what current circumstances are. And that was, a weekend that's now open again because, again, you're not going to have Tate Kenny on campus. He already did it. He moved his date up. So you've got the next 2 weekends that are potentials for the Ratliff twins. Going back to that, could they get them in that quickly? Nate Oates in Alabama, their recency of showing up at Stepanak, Archbishop Stepanak to see both of these guys, pretty expedient in terms of getting them on campus for official visits. So, maybe, and we've seen Arkansas in a blink of an eye, or at least it looked like the way publicly with a couple of players, announcing visit dates on the same week they come in. And with Tay Kenny, it was effectively, that kind of last minute thing too. We knew something was stirring there. We talked about it before we found out because of the sense of urgency Calipari seemed to be showing going out to see Kenny and his family, and the fact that he's announcing on September 28th. And if Arkansas is not in the lead, probably not a good look to have him in that weekend. So you either cancel it or you bump him up, which is exactly what happened. But now we're in a wait and see mode. How long do we have to wait to see when the Ratliff twins are coming in? Maybe Arkansas gets it done for this weekend. They've spent a lot of time out there recently, so you don't think they're going to probably let that drag out too long. But who knows? Remember, Baba Aladatn is scheduled to come in, the previous class of 2027, number one player, 6'10", versatile combo forward, stretch the floor kind of a guy, really talented player. Top 10 now that he's reclassed to 2026, still a top 10 commodity. And Maryland, you hear some other schools in the mix, and he's from Maryland. But we've reported that based on what his dad told me, there's a date, it's tentative, for later in October. That I think it's the weekend of October 24th to the 26th. The football Hogs, by the way, will be hosting Auburn in football. Auburn looking for not looking for a basketball coach, but who knows how long it'll be before they will, because Bruce Pearl, by the way, announced his retirement yesterday, and his son, I guess, is going to be the head coach. So we'll see how long that experiment works. Might work just fine for him, maybe not. But either way, Arkansas football hosts Auburn the weekend of October 24th to 26th. That's the tentative date for Baba Aladatn. So we do have a date out there, but we're keeping an eye on the next 2 weekends for the Ratliff twins. We're going to continue to monitor the situation with Aladatn. But another name we've talked a lot about, and I've got an update for you here, is more intel. Getting a lot of intel in here today. Chase Foster, the 6'8" forward, out of Baltimore, Maryland. He plays at IMG Academy with Cloer, played on Team Mello. He was also a guy that got a late Arkansas offer. Actually, after Calipari offered Cloer, a few weeks later, he offers Chase Foster. But I say it all the time, Foster is a very active 6'8", strong, athletic, really good nose for putting the ball on the deck with some quickness. If he's out on the perimeter and away from the basket, a strong rebounder, though, but getting the ball on the deck and slashing. Really good in transition. I mean, he's an SEC wheelhouse kind of frontline guy. I really like Chase Foster. And we've said for a while that our intel that we brought before is that there is a visit date, an OV visit date that's been finalized. That date's not been shared with me, but that's been the reporting for a while. We just haven't talked about it as much because we just had this flurry of visits each week and talking about the business of what's actually happening in real time and not looking ahead as much, although we casually bring it up as we come on. Don't forget Chase Foster. Well, a source informed me yesterday, the intel was that is still in the works, meaning if not to say that, it was finalized, but in the works to change it. So I don't have that much information other than the notion that the visit's still on go. But when do they when is that? Does it would they move it up now that there's these 2 weekends that are open, that came open recently again, because, Kenny moving his up and then Cloer canceling his, it opens up a lot of possibilities to whatever the finalized date was for Chase Foster. If it wasn't one of those 2 weekends, to go ahead and make it one of those 2 weekends. I don't have enough information to know that, other than I was informed yesterday that, because we don't take anything for granted. Just because we've said there's an OV finalized, visits go away. The finalized visit with Cloer was publicly known, and it went away. So we continue to check up on it. I'm told, that's still a thing. I still don't have the dates, and I don't know. Let's say those dates were for later in October, similar to a time that you were bringing in Baba Aladatn, for example. You could change that now because things have changed in what the scheduling was just last week, right, with Kenny and Cloer taking up the next couple of weekends. So again, I know I'm kind of repeating some of that because it gets confusing. I'm trying to process this myself, but it's really not that difficult when you look at the calendar. They're open. These are open dates, and then we'll just see where things fall in. Arkansas, speaking of Chuck Martin, who we've talked about quite a bit here, a source told me on Monday that Martin on Tuesday, today, this is more intel for you. I did tweet this out, but if you didn't see the tweet, I think I tweeted it last night and retweeted it earlier today. But either way, Chuck Martin off to the left coast as of today. Now, he was in Central Arkansas yesterday. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But off to the left coast today, Los Angeles. He's going to see multiple prospects, younger players, so not just pressing class of 2026. But one player he is going to stop in and see is in Sierra Canyon in Los Angeles. One Brandon McCoy Jr., top 5-rated 5-star when you look at it from the National Recruiting Services, 6'5" guard who took an official visit to Arkansas back in early September. So you've got Brandon McCoy, who we've talked about lately. I have felt like, based on all the source information I put together, my own intel, that if Arkansas is not the leader, he's at least an Arkansas lean. What's the difference? I'm not sure. One sounds a little stronger than the other. He just took a visit to Miami. West Coast schools in the mix, Duke, there's, more than one way. You got to look at, Michigan's another one. But Brandon McCoy Jr., the fact that Martin's going to go out and see him tells me what I already believe, is that Arkansas is continuing to make him a priority. Well, if they're in the lead, how could you see it any other way? But now we have some evidence that we know specifically what that looks like, and Arkansas's got a staffer going out traveling today. So I don't know exactly when Martin will be in to see him, but it will be in the next day or so, assuming that. I don't know how much time he would spend out in Los Angeles. I guess it could be longer than that, but I doubt it. Okay, now speaking of Chuck Martin, we both happened to be at Benton High School yesterday. It was a coincidence, I guess. Oddly enough, Anthony Spratt Jr., class of 2028. You know the story because we broke it here first. Calipari offered him a scholarship. It's been a couple of months now. If it's been sooner than that, it seems like a couple of months anyway. But extended that offer and told Spratt at the time, you are the youngest player I've ever offered. Benton High School, true freshman last year, helped Benton win a 5A state title. The school's only title in basketball. Don't know about other sports, but it was in basketball. And he had a big role on a senior-laden team, Division I players in that lineup that have moved on and on their college campuses now. But Spratt had a big hand in that, was doing really well spring and summer on the Nike E15 circuit. Arkansas coaches out to see him. And then Calipari, we first reported this at the time before the offer, that Calipari would be in Kansas City for the Midwest Showcase, a scholastic event in June, when Spratt and his Benton team were playing against other high school teams in the region. That was in Kansas City. Calipari courtside to see that. And pretty shortly after that, we were hearing that Calipari was going to offer the scholarship. We talked about that here. And that Calipari was telling people at that time that would be the youngest player he ever offered. So all that we've shared, all that we've gone through. Well, the offer is not thin. We know Calipari said he's going to identify in-state players that can help. He's going to offer them if they can help, and that's what he did. Eventually that offer comes out, and so we've spent a lot of time on that. But part of that process is in-state players especially. It was Isaiah Seeley. Well, he'll be a freshman this year. J.J. Andrews, been committed since mid-May. Seeley, class 2025. Then class 2026, J.J. Andrews, committed. He's a Hog. We'll get his paperwork done in early November, early signing period, be done with it, finish out, do his high school senior season, and then off to the Hogs. This is a player, obviously, that's not committed. He's got the offer, class of 2028, Spratt. 6'6" wing, by the way. Good athleticism, good skill, good mid-range work, nice stroke from three. Gets stronger every time I see him, looks bigger every time I see him. But the way that you know Calipari is serious is the fact that, first of all, he doesn't put out offers to players that he's not really going to, try to close the deal on and be sincere about. But then you start looking at the exhibits that come along with it. The next exhibit, after Exhibit A is the offer, Exhibit B, then I guess we could say, is Chuck Martin being at Benton High School practice yesterday. Arkansas, trust me, I know this, they want this player. And so we'll see what happens. By the way, you got to go check this out. I have a special edition of HogvilleNET YouTube Live, or a HogvilleNET YouTube, since I recorded it yesterday after practice with Anthony Spratt Jr. About a 10-minute interview. That's it. But it's really good. He did a really good job in that interview. And you got to go check that out if you haven't seen it already. It's already published here on our HogvilleNET YouTube channel. But during the interview, Spratt talked about his recruitment. Duke, John Shire was courtside to watch him play. Bruce Pearl at Auburn. So I'm assuming Stephen Pearl is going to pick up the reins in the recruitment. But those were just two of the names that were courtside to watch him play during Peach Jam back in July. And then and when Spratt was in the state of North Carolina at CP3 Rising Stars Camp last month, he took an unofficial visit to Duke, and I got a picture sent to me, him posing with John Shire, the head coach of the Duke Blue Devils. And I tweeted that out. So there are other schools in the mix. He's got a ways to go in terms of where he'll be in his recruitment and NIL and all those things that factor in. But he was excited. He told me he was excited. You go see the interview. Let his words speak for themselves. But paraphrasing it, he was excited that Division I coaches are showing up at his practices. And there was Chuck Martin yesterday. Had a good practice, man. This guy is engaged during the drill work. If he's not in the drill, he's on the sidelines encouraging teammates, talking to them through it. I was really impressed with his leadership as a high school sophomore or 10th grader. Now there's some young talent on this Benton team, and there's some seniors in the backcourt as well. One that transferred in, but Javarius Russell, that has been part of 2 state title championship game teams for Benton. They didn't win it 2 years ago, lost to Pine Bluff in a crazy comeback for the Zebras in the end of that game, and then won it last year against Maumelle in a crazy finish as well. But Javarius Russell, the younger brother of Braylon Russell, the Benton Bulldozer on the Razorbacks football team, I don't think got enough carries last week in Memphis. Either way, we agreed on that. I interviewed him as well. I put that on Twitter. That's not on the HogvilleNET channel, YouTube channel. But they got some good talent there. But Spratt is clearly a star level player. When you looked at the competitive stuff they did in practice, his strength, his skill, his understanding the game at this age, a lot of stuff. He's getting better defensively. He's a really good player. And then, again, Chuck Martin there to see him. I know that he's seeing these things because I know, I was privy to some of the conversations during practice of what some of the thoughts are about the player in terms of how Arkansas staff sees it. And we've talked about that already. We brought you a ton of intel on it to let you know that this offer would happen and this would progress. Now, he did tell me he plans to take an unofficial visit to Arkansas at some point. They're trying to work that out. And he's busy the next few weeks. So talking about open weekends, could you squeeze him in? He's got Wooten's camp. I guess there's a potential for it, but he's got that prestigious Coach Wooten's Top 150 camp coming up very soon. And that is a McDonald's All-American Showcase event. And then later, a bit later, October 9th through the 13th, we also reported this, first to report it a few weeks ago. Maybe it was last week. God, the time's flying by. That he was invited to that Team USA Junior National Camp October 9th through the 13th in Colorado Springs, Colorado. J.J. Andrews as well going out there, by the way, and a bunch of other Arkansas recruiting targets in the 2026, 27, and 28 classes as well. But Spratt's got his plate full with these big-time opportunities. And, of course, he's working with his team. That was the whole thing with practice yesterday. He wants to be back-to-back state champion as a sophomore. That's what J.J. Andrews did. He brought up J.J. Andrews' name in that interview as one of the players he looks up to. Go check that out. It's really good. He did a good job in that interview. A lot better than I did, but it's worth it just to see him. All right, we're matriculating down the field on the clock here over, it looks like my vision's blurred. It's either over 28 minutes or over 26. Can't tell if that's a 6 or an 8. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Although today we're recording, so it won't be live. I'm just used to saying that. If you haven't hit the buttons for subscribe, like, and share, go hit those buttons. Turn the notification on. Why not? You need to know when we're out here breaking stuff. We're first on most. That's not going to change. But we hope you enjoy the content. Look, when we talk about these upcoming weekends, again, Notre Dame game, prime time at the Palace, you're going to have a fan-charged atmosphere, even though Arkansas is struggling in football. So I am curious to see not only the potential for the official visits we just talked about, but stuff we don't know yet. I know there's some stuff in the works. When I say we don't know, I'm not able to say everything right now because it needs to be ironed out, and we'll see if it gets ironed out. There's some scheduling stuff with several players I'd like to bring in. Not players that have been on the immediate radar for 26. I'll say it that way to not get you too excited. But you could, again, have some possibilities based on what I just talked about with some folks, as well, because that's why we brought it up. So keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on the reporting. I'll do my best to get here just almost 30 minutes in. We're not going to quite get there. Mika Mirian, Arkansas, still in the mix there. That's more something else I continue to hear, and I found out again yesterday. Signing off. Thanks for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Hope you have a great day, great week. See you soon.